You talk about like creating a game that you win, and how consumer identity is like, you're either, I'm going to, only one person wins, or I'm going to play to not lose.
Right.
Maybe give some feedback on what you mean by how do you design the game,
Right.
and incorporating that sole purpose, et cetera, that we all can win and do our own.
When life becomes about an outcome, and if then when, then we've already lost.
Yes.
Because now we're reaching for fleeting moments that can at best give us a hit of dopamine where we're renting happiness. So
your taglines, somebody hashtag that, renting happiness.
And the world is constructed for us to rent happiness. The next award, the next accolade, the next acknowledgement, the next huge viral post, the next, like, so everything is about this external validation determining our value. And when we're stuck in that game, then it becomes about effort, hustle, grind, worry, frustration, and all of it robs us of being present. And when we're not present, we've lost. So it's hard to be present because we've learned how to suffer the future. What's going to happen with AI? What happens if the zombie apocalypse happens? I'm like everybody suffers the future, which disempowers them of living a better life today. Or people are still stuck in the past wishing it would be different. Right. And so they're either stuck in the future or the past, never living in their power. And so
I love that you say the presence is our power. Like, that is.
That is. And when we find joy in the work we've won, it's not just the outcome. The outcome is the gravy. It's the bonus. It's the byproduct. But we've designed this game worth winning. Like, if I'm writing, if I'm performing, if I'm creating, if I'm in conversations and connection with relationships, like, I had to give up the notion of scaling a business, because the more I would scale my business, the less connected I felt to it. And I was like, I want to connect with people.
Yeah.
And so I'm inviting people, comment on my blog, and I will actually respond. Not a bot, not someone from my team. I want to know what's going on. I want to feel connected. Or I've been taking people to my cabin and spending a day, which is low scale, but high profit and high connection, because I'm really dialed in with that person and helping them to build their richest life. So, when we have a calendar and a life that is the life that we want to live, we're not trying to get away from it or try to get to something. And look, I still am susceptible at times. Like, I filmed the comedy special with 8 Emmy winners on my crew, and I felt so good about it that my manager's like, dude, we need to pitch this to Netflix. And then my life all of a sudden was like, oh yeah, if I'm on Netflix, I'm a real comedian. And then I'm lost, trapped and stuck in trying to get somewhere versus like enjoying the moments of comedy. Like, each moment is, every time I write a joke and it amuses me, every time I'm in the crowd and it amuses them, every time they don't laugh and I make fun of them for not understanding what I'm saying. And it's like, you just create all these vignettes of joy, but we're just trained that we can only be happy when other people have acknowledged us. But there's always someone that doesn't. There's always someone that is frustrated. There's always someone with more.
And so, game.
There's 2 carriers of scarcity. One is called more, and the other is called sacrifice. And almost anywhere we look, sacrifice is heralded as a champion. You have to sacrifice to succeed. That's bullshit, because then we sacrifice who we are instead of enjoying the process. Right. And the belief is you can't have it all. And because you can't have it all, you have to sacrifice some part so that one day it will be better. But then again, you've lost that moment. You've lost that game today, all in the name of you achieve it. And you go, like, look, I was listening to David Letterman was interviewing Will Smith, and this interview happened before he slapped Chris Rock. And he was talking about how they had broken records with the biggest movie of that time, and he still thought we should have done $7 million more. And he was unhappy, and he was like back in the grind. What happens is when you grind out for that long, you are so you're tightly wound,
right?
And then you're going to have an explosive moment because you're carrying too much burden, because you're not enjoying it along the way, because the wind's not defined. You're letting Hollywood define the win. You're letting the box office define the win. You're letting the producer define the win. You're letting the director define the win. You're letting your spouse define the win. And so we go through life. Do you like me now? Did I appease you? Am I good enough now? Am I lovable enough now? And the reality is when we love ourselves, we've already won.
Yeah, you got it. And you said, sacrifice, when you're sacrificing, then it becomes your habits. Like you think it's
Who you
someday,
are.
again, it's like a manipulation game. It's like someday, so I'll sacrifice now. And then you become, again, that vibration, that mindset, those habitual patterns. So it just continues. And I love that framework of it as well. So it's like you either are catching how, so it feels like this is like the new earth fucking shift, like of how to be human, right? Like it's like we get to actually realize that we've been programmed a completely different way. That is, it's like in the medical field, you know, they study cadavers and disease for health. You know, let's study this sick person to try to decide how to be healthy, which is bullshit. Instead of let's study health to be healthy. And so you're saying, let's study life. Let's study how do we actually be in awareness and joy in every single moment. That is an amazing life mastery code. But how do you apply that?
Right. Well, even like when I was studying the Rockefellers, one of the things I didn't write about in the book is the Rockefellers determined how we tune music. And they tuned it to dissonance instead of the vibration of love.
Really?
So as people are listening to it, they're feeling more angst and anxious, which drives us to consumerism.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it's like, so when you look at it, it's everywhere we look. Like from the time we go to school to the articles we read, if you look up, you know, sacrifice, it's always going to be a positive. Sacrifice to succeed. You got to sacrifice to succeed. You got to, so that gets programmed. So what's the code out of that? Is we have to know our win. And we have to design the game based upon what's fulfilling along the way. Like the time I heard the win is in the work was I heard someone interview Kobe Bryant, who had won 5 championships, but he saw the win was in the work. So he was to the gym first. He was at the gym because it was something he enjoyed, and the byproduct was a championship. But when people go, I'll be happy when I win a championship, they might win one and then they have no life after that. They haven't created a future. They don't know what their win is. They feel very lost. They feel very depressed, because if our future isn't more exciting than our past, that's when we start living in regret and resentment and frustration, and all of that comes about. So really, you get a hobby, you listen, and then you design your life. So I just look at my calendar and go, what belonged on this calendar and what doesn't belong on this calendar? What is a representation of the human being that I am, right? And then I just make sure that I can be still enough that I can know God. That if I'm not still, that I'm crowding him out because of the world, and that's my ultimate co-creation, because we're all one, and it's essentially, am I embracing the abundance that truly is, or am I seeing it as separate? And as soon as I see it as separate, I'll be in dissonance. I'll be back stuck in either playing to win, trying to chase something, or playing not to lose, hiding from something. So if I'm living in the future or the past, like I know if I'm living in the future because I start thinking about things I have to do before they need to be done. And I collapse timelines and I start thinking I'll be happy when. So I've just changed my relationship with time. Time is no longer the thing that's going to conquer me in this world. If the time frame for my one-man show, because I started writing it in 2019, then COVID hit, I was like, cool, I get to really rehearse this a lot. It was like, and I'm just going to, continue.
It's not when I finally do it, then I'll finally be happy.
Right. And that's where most of the world is, because the world is trained to be that way. When you'll be happy when you get this. And then you get that and you find out it wasn't enough. So you can check every box and still be unfulfilled, because underneath all those boxes is an actual human being that knows the design, but forgets about it, trying to appease others, trying to earn other people's respect, trying to gain admiration. And Hollywood continues to make it look so fake and so possible. These guys that are as shredded as could be, drinking beer, not working out, they're on the screen, but then as soon as they're off the screen, they're working out 3 times a day. And, it's like, we buy into a reality that doesn't exist and judge ourselves on an impossible standard. And then that external validation destroys everything internally that's already whole in us.
And and everything that's not is just allowing us, like you even talk about this in even your show, and just that, or in how when we get to pay attention to any energy that's in resistance, because that is just showing us what is ready to be healed and loved. So hence it's being present with whatever's here that is not in joy, that is not in peace, that is not as harmony, that we get to be able to dissolve and heal to a greater degree. So you talk about this also as a byproduct. Like you're like, when you create the winning game, which means you're just playing life. So let's say like you live a lot like I do, in the fact that I'm just like, oh, what's the most nourishing for my soul? Like, how could I experience more joy? Where's the energy calling me to? What do I feel called to do? What's calling me forth that feels exciting for my soul? And my calendar is based off of that.
Right.
And I still, like, you have many, like, catch myself where it's like, getting pulled out. and going to have ideas of like what this should look like or that should look like, and have to come back to like, what's in this moment and where's the energy guiding me. So you say though, there's, or maybe you could give some cornerstones to the way that you do this. Like you talk about relationship value and creating the value of your relationships in life, and that value is the exchange. Because for someone who maybe is listening and they're either running a high-powered business, or they're coming from the different roles and personas that you teach about and play, like I gotta strive for success, or I've got to scrimp back and save, and I'm not going to live my life in these different roles that you play. And how they can, you say that it doesn't take resources. Like anybody can start.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe you can give some of those pieces to how does someone start on that journey where they can go, okay, well, how do I design my life now that is based off of what is the most fulfilling, and get away from this idea that, oh, well, okay, I'll just do that, versus like, oh, I've got a business, because you made that shift.
Yeah. So the code of this is called the cycle of creation. So the cycle of creation begins with our ideas, right? And ideas are just thoughts that we have. Most people keep those thoughts to themselves because they're like, well, what if it wouldn't work? And what if I don't have all the resources or the power, or I don't want to like start it and stop it? But if we can just move that to a concept where it's shared with another person, preferably. So I have the idea, I want to do a comedy. That moment I call a comedian and say, hey, I have an idea. Can we meet? And then when I meet with them, I'm like, can we schedule an open mic? I'm always moving it forward to a concept where it's concrete, where someone else has now shared it and can move it forward. Then it's about building a framework. So a framework is where I could delegate things. So in a comedy special, there's 8 cameras, there's set design, there's, finding the location, there's editors, so that's all about framework. How can I remove that? So every day I'm just doing the comedy thing so that that's ready. And then a product, service, or experience. Now, if someone was like, hey, I want to do anything, whether it's write a book or they want to coach, it's like, well, what if you pre-sell that? What if you go, and even if you don't know very many people, you can just go to one catalyst. Catalysts are movers and shakers and connectors. And you say, hey, Marcy, I'm gonna do this for you. I'm not going to charge you, but if it's good, like, will you endorse me?
5 of your friends.
And will you tell people, because you're super connected. So all of a sudden I'm making a deposit and making a request. But here's the deal. We've got to feel worthy enough to ask. Like I was sitting.
You never get what you don't ask for.
I was sitting at a comedy club and I saw the manager, and he just said hi. It was busy. So I just texted him and I was like, hey, I haven't been on the schedule for a minute. Would love to do it. I had to be worthy enough to ask. And he was like, here's 3 dates. But most people go, oh, he didn't come up. He didn't ask me. And they're playing this game of mind reading. So go from idea to concept with mental capital by brainstorming, and relationship capital, which is the person that makes the concept. You can start selling something. Like Garrett White and I, way back in the day, pre-sold this course called the Freedom Fast Track on Demand. We hadn't filmed a single video yet, and we sold $150,000. And then we hired an editor, and then we had, we built out the studio where you and I did our last interview, and then we started filming it every week for 7 weeks because we already had sold it up front. Which allowed us. You
guys might be the ones who taught me that, because I was always like, follow the idea, create as I go, because it's like that's the integrity piece that you've already. It's almost like an accountability and integrity piece. You're going to do this, so I'm doing
You're
this.
Not just making it for no one. Like, think
versus
about it. The Super Bowl is pre-sold. They don't know who's playing. They don't know how good the game's going to be, and it's already sold out. Before the game happens. Most people go, when the game happens, then we're going to charge afterwards.
Or I got to create the whole program and the and the website and it's all in the future, and then it never happens.
So mental and relationship capital. Mental capital is ideas, knowledge, wisdom, insight, strategies, tools. Relationship capital, people, networks, organizations, mentors, friends, and family. Move it to concept that it's now concrete, whether it's on a website or whether it's on a, it's just like, look, when I started doing
just
immersions,
speaking it and writing it, you like to say, speak it, write it, speak it, write it, speak it, write it.
So I have this situation where I'm like, I had someone that's like, hey, we've been in your program, but like, what would it take to work with you? And so I threw out a big number. I was like 150 grand, which small compared to what you were charging at the time, but 150. But then what I realized is, they expected too much of me for the 150. I had to do calls when I was in Italy. So I was like, no, 25 grand for a day. It's just one day. I just make all the connections. But I didn't have a website. I didn't have a form. And now over time, we built where people could pay for that, or people where people could apply, and there's a process, but you just start with the minimum viable product that someone can engage you. And then you use the profitability to build the next level of framework. And then you go down the circle again. Okay, we have this program. What's the next idea that we make a concept? And you can ask, you can survey them, you could find out. And then what's the framework that we can start delegating that out? And then, can we get paid up front for it?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And if you're enjoying these videos, well, there's good news. More where that came from. So go ahead and click through and watch the next video now.